Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am broadcasting from lovely Escazú, Costa Rica, where it has been a beautiful day. And today is Sunday, the 30th of January in the year 2022, and we are at the end of January. Can you believe it? The first month of the new year is already finished. Tomorrow's the last day, so this is a big deal. And the bigger deal is that Venus is direct. Yay! Hurrah. Well, this is quite an accomplishment for each and every one of us because this has been a very powerful Venus retrograde. And Venus went direct yesterday at 3:46 a.m. Eastern Time, and she has been retrograde since the 19th of December 2021. Now, here we are. What happened for you? How are you feeling? Do you feel that you have made progress? My experience personally was when this went direct yesterday, it was a huge burden was lifted and a huge relief and a huge sweeping forward because this has been a very intense retrograde. One reason is because it's been in Capricorn, and Capricorn is a very serious sign, and Capricorn is a sign of accomplishment and wanting accomplishment. And for me personally, I wanted to see to it that I accomplished what I needed to do to get myself clear, like any emotional Venusian related issues such as love, money, finance, relationships, friendships, all that, emotions, all of that needed to be worked on and cleared. And so I feel like, I did a lot of work, and Capricorn is a sign of work. So it was important to do work on ourselves during this time, or work through things if you are in a marriage or a partnership or a business partnership or anything. This is something that was important to work through and connect with and really examine and do your homework, and Saturn needs us to do that Saturn, and Saturn rules Capricorn. Now, one of the things that I also think was very important about this is that Venus, and I've said this before, Venus connected with Pluto twice. And so, Venus is not out of her shadow. She's direct, but she's not out of her shadow, and she won't be out of her shadow until she gets to 26 degrees of Capricorn, which isn't going to happen until early March. Now, that's where she went retrograde. So she then will proceed through new areas of the zodiac that she has not been through in, a year or so. So when Venus connected with Pluto the first time in early December and then the second time on Christmas, we had to do some deep diving into our feelings, into our emotions, into our patterns of relationships and what our expectations were of relationships. And, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, as I mentioned, as I've said many times before, but Saturn is not the easiest planet. Yes, it requires us to do work, so we were expected to do work during this Venus retrograde, but Saturn also is where we need to, wipe out fear, where fear has potentially gotten in the way of our acting or taking action or any part of our lives that fear might actually impede us, create obstacles. Obstacles are often created by, unconscious things, but fear is one of them. And fear is something that we learn lessons through, which is also a Saturnine thing. We learn lessons through conquering our fears and our anxieties and our insecurities. And Capricorn is a lot about that, and Saturn is a lot about that. And you would think Capricorns are very confident people, and but they have to prove something. They always feel like they have to prove something to the world, or show themselves, prove something to themselves that they can accomplish it, they can do it, they can land on top, they can climb that mountain and stay focused and committed and accomplish something and have success in their hand. And so it's a tangible earth sign. Remember that. We want to see something tangible from all of this. So what does that mean? It means that I felt in my own life, and I'm sure other people felt this too, that there were highlights of my insecurities and feelings of insecurity, anywhere where I felt untethered or insecure in any way. Those things were highlighted to be worked on and eradicated. And we still have time to do that because Venus is going to be in Capricorn for a while before she goes into Aquarius in March. But we still have to remain mindful of what those insecurities are and where they impede us in our lives. So, it's over. Venus is not retrograde anymore, but she's stopped in the sky. She's at 11 degrees, 4 minutes. And she's going to slowly start to move forward. And she's still, remember what I said, she was going to be at 11 degrees for 16 days. So she's still going to be at 11 degrees for the rest of the week. And we will be evaluating our experience of recognizing insecurities, healing insecurities, healing anxieties, healing relationships, healing our finances. Where do we feel less than? Where do we feel the fear has gotten the better of us? This is all really important to still look at, but that wind of change blew through the door, and I felt a complete different energy once that Venus went direct. And even on Friday, I could feel things changing and moving, and things were going forward. And it was so important to know that. It was so important to be aware of that and make things known to myself. Things came forward, information came forward to me. And it's been, a very intense process because of Venus's connection to Pluto. Pluto is never lighthearted. Pluto is dealing with the underworld. Pluto is where we get pulled into the underworld to see our own darkness, to shine the light on our own darkness so that we can release it and it no longer has a hold over us. It no longer controls us. And this was been very complicated over these last 6 weeks. So it's important for each of us to now move forward with confidence and know that any insecurities and perhaps fears and anxieties that we've experienced during this retrograde period can now be cleared. If they have their roots someplace in your life, you probably recognize them. Maybe you had to deal with some power struggles because it was Venus-Pluto. And we're going to find our way through this. We're going to navigate through this path over this next month and several days as we move through the same path that Venus visited while she was retrograde. So this will be territory that she is going to see for the third time. She went all the way to 26 Capricorn. She went all the way back from 26 to 11 degrees. And now she's at 11 and we're going to go forward. So the first 11 degrees of Capricorn, she's not visiting again. She did that already back in November. And then we went forward until she went 26, turned around. And now she's turned back around at 11. And this is an important review of the same territory and how we can move forward with our plans. Now, as I said, tangible sign, Capricorn. It's an earth sign. Capricorn more than anybody wants to see progress. Wants to see, I made progress. I worked hard. Where's my reward? Where do I get to see how I did? How did I do on the test? How did I score? And so what we're going to look at now in these next weeks is, where we can tweak the energies, where we can, we're not going to get dumped into that pool of retrograde anymore. We're going to get up on our feet and start moving forward. But whatever has been holding you back, from like where the obstacles were, wherever those obstacles held you back. Now's the time to shake free of them. And the other thing is that when you do the work with Saturn, Saturn does give you something in the end. So I would expect that each of us has something to recover from this, and we can step forward with confidence because we work through the insecurities, and we can move into a direction of achievement, which is so important to Capricorn. Now, we are in a very Capricornian time because Mercury retrograded back into Capricorn and conjunct Pluto Friday night in this region of the world. And we have so many planets in Capricorn right now because the moon went into Capricorn, right? So the moon went into Capricorn, and that was Saturday in the wee hours in this region of the world. So that means we've got Mars, Venus, Moon, Mercury, and Pluto, all in Capricorn. All in Capricorn. That's 5 planets in Capricorn. That's a whole lot of Capricorn. And so we're not done. We're not done with Capricorn yet. We're not done with reevaluating the insecurities, stepping forward out of our fears and anxieties. We're looking at all that. And Venus went retrograde yesterday, and then the moon met up with her and Mars. Went to Mars and then went to Venus. And so this is really important. Because the moon really gave that Venus direct a vitamin shot, and I felt that. And now the moon is 24, as I'm doing this, it's 24 degrees of Capricorn, and Mercury's 25 and Pluto's 26. So Mercury gets the moon, in the next couple of hours, and then Pluto a few hours after that gets the moon, and then of course, after that the moon will go void as it conjuncts Pluto 11:44 p.m. tonight Eastern time. So we are in for some really interesting, emotional connections. And if you have aha moments, epiphanies, write them down. This is going to be important for you to look at as you go through the weeks that we're coming through. Now, Venus is going to go back over that section of Capricorn that she was in before she went retrograde, and then after she went retrograde. So this is going to be section number 3, the version number 3 of that section of the zodiac. And what's so important is that she is not going to do this by herself. So she's sitting at 11 degrees, and she's moving forward. She's kind of in limbo right now because she's stopped. But, she's getting past the retrograde. She's starting to gently move forward, and she's doing that. She's still going to be at 11. But, by the time we get to, Thursday, Mars is going to be at 7. Tuesday, Wednesday, it's going to be at 6. Mars will be at 7.5. And that's really only 4 degrees away from Venus at 11. Remember, Venus is slowed so much that Mars, which is a slower moving planet than Venus, is able to catch up to her. To my estimation, that is a conjunction. Yes, folks, the Venus-Mars conjunction is going to start this week. And it's not an exact conjunction, but you're going to feel it. And I'm already feeling it because, I was in my coaching group the other day, and we were talking about male-female energies and how much male do you feel during the day and how much female do you feel during the day when you check in with yourself. The process of knowing male-female energies and when it's time to move forward and when it's time to release and receive. And female energy receives and male energy acts. And then there's been all sorts of stuff all over about divine feminine, divine masculine. Very important. This is all coming together in a very serious way. Remember, it's Capricorn. They will jaunt into Aquarius together. Yes. So this is profound. Like I said before, Venus and Mars don't do this very often. So we're going to really start seeing the connection of male and female. And this is a really good thing to evaluate. And we will talk about this a lot in the coming weeks. How much energy do you expend in the masculine? And is it the proper energy in the masculine? Meaning, there's divine masculine, there's wounded masculine, there's divine feminine, there's wounded feminine. And what we were talking about in the last few weeks in my coaching group with my coach, Yerlin Ramirez, and I don't work with her, for her, I do work with her. But anyway, she was saying, when you have this moment of, you feel like you should in quotations, act. You should take action. Oh, I should be taking action. And you're taking action because you should be and not because it's aligned with what you're feeling. When you align with energy to be moved forward in an action, it should be an impulse that you cannot resist. Because if you are acting because you're supposed to, or you think in your head you're supposed to, then it's coming from the wounded masculine. We're always told, you have to take action. Go out there, do it, do it, do it. And that doesn't always work. Sometimes you feel like you have to sit back and receive and release and receive the moment, and then the impulse comes, and then you can go take the action. Because you can take action till you're blue in the face, banging your head against the wall, and nothing happens because it's not in alignment. It's not the right time. It's so important to connect with what is in alignment and what is aligned action, as opposed to random, impulsive action just because you think you should. So this is something that everybody should be thinking about over these next weeks and months as Venus and Mars journey together. And hopefully, we come to a better place of balance and understanding this Venus and Mars dynamic. And this is something really important to be looking at. And it's also, going to be a good time for relationships and things, after we come out of this, after having come out of the retrograde cycle. So that's really important. So, right now, 5 planets in Capricorn, serious, commitment, focus, hard work, but, never working matter to matter, working smartly, working with your energy in the right place. Okay. So today the sun squared Uranus, and the sun is in Aquarius, and I felt an agitated energy earlier today. It was conjunct at 2:32 p.m. Squared at 2:32 p.m. Eastern time, and that, Uranus rules Aquarius. So there was a little bit of knocking energies, against each other because of the square. But I definitely, when I sat down to meditate this morning, it was like, okay, I had to really, really sit myself down and get my energy sorted, because it was very distracting energy today. And there was no distraction. There wasn't like the other day when the bottle of kefir exploded in my house. No, this was definitely just in my head and the energy around me, and I really pulled myself together and had to meditate. So that's something that maybe you had to reel in. You had to reel in your energy today. And it's always a little agitated when Sun and Uranus, it's the life force and the sun. And then there's this planet that's, governs chaos. So that was part of it. And then we have a new moon on Tuesday. So it's another exciting week. Venus is starting to move forward. And there's a new moon on Tuesday. And it's, the first new moon after the sun enters Aquarius is always the Chinese New Year. And so the Chinese Lunar New Year, the year of the tiger, starts on Tuesday. The new moon is at 12:46 a.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. And if you live in the Pacific time zone, it will be, earlier in the evening, maybe you're not getting ready for bed yet. But yes, 12:46 a.m. Eastern time. Very good. New energy in Aquarius. It's the new moon in Aquarius. Now, tricky because The moon and the sun will be in Aquarius. And then, of course, the moon will march forward 6 hours, 5 hours later and conjunct Saturn. And so that's, it feels a little restricting, a little bit, in impediment. But again, remember, we're still working through these insecurities that we've had. And the moon will have squared Uranus at 10:25 p.m. on Monday night before it becomes new. So again, remember Uranus and Saturn were squaring last year. And so Saturn has moved forward. Saturn's like numerous degrees ahead of Uranus, and they are no longer in any sort of exactitude as far as the square goes. That moved forward at Christmas time. But the moon will be hitting the Uranus, which is at 10 degrees first, and then going to Saturn, which is at 15 degrees. And, that's something to pay attention to. Just if you feel that squeeze between restriction and liberation again, know that it's the moon triggering all of those. And then, of course, the big news is that the second retrograde ends on Thursday. And it's going to be late Thursday. It'll be at 11:13 p.m. Mercury will go direct. So, they're all keeping up with each other. Mercury and Venus, and the retrograde's moving forward. So we're going to feel a lot more clarity once we get to Friday. And so if you've been waiting to contact people, initiate things, definitely hang in there till Friday. It's a good thing. I'm waiting to make some purchases and things, and I'm just going to wait till Friday. I'm not going to say, oh, Venus is direct, I can go do this now. No, I'd rather wait till Friday, And the Mercury direct occurs 11:13 p.m. Eastern time. And so if you feel things slowing down, Mercury will be, it conjunct Pluto the other day, and now it's going to pass Pluto, and it's not going to, it'll come back to Pluto, but it won't come back until February 11th. So there were 3 passages. One of them was back in December. One of them was Friday. One of them, Friday late, Saturday, ish. And one of them will be on the 11th of February. What information has come forward for you? What information has led to transformation? And that's a good thing. And while Mercury is going direct, the sun is going to meet with Saturn. So, we had, again, there's this dynamic between Saturn and Uranus, and today, earlier, as I mentioned, the sun squared Uranus. And since Saturn is further on, it won't reach the conjunction with Saturn as it is in Aquarius until Friday. Now, Sun Saturn. Don't let Saturn overdo it. Saturn can be, like I said, there was an agitation today. I calmed myself down. I did it through meditation. Good job. Okay. I didn't stay agitated. I didn't say, you know what? I don't feel like meditating. I have too much energy. I can't sit still today. I didn't do that. So we have to work with the energy. And I was able to move through it and have a very deep meditation and profound meditation today because of Sun Uranus. And I transcended that erratic energy. When we get to Friday, don't be gloomy. Don't allow the gloom to get to you. And again, if I start feeling gloomy, it's going to be 2:05 p.m. Eastern time, which is 1:05 p.m. my time. If I start feeling the gloom, I'm going to go into my meditation and I'm just going to do it and transcend it so that I understand what might be calling me as far as seriousness or commitment, or maybe it's commitment to taking action, And it's important to think about your actions and where you haven't been able to take action because there's been so much retrograde. Even if you're a person who takes action despite retrograde, maybe you've been stopped along the way. There was someone here that was trying to launch a business. I think I mentioned that in another podcast, and how they just kept getting stopped. And I said, it's just Mercury retrograde. Just sit back and accept it. And so where we've had to sort of sit back and accept things. So It's stepping forward with caution, It's also asking us to not get sucked into the Saturn 9 energy of possibly being a bit gloomy or getting too caught up in the seriousness of the moment, just being cautious about, like, okay, I don't want to go crazy now that I'm delirious that Mercury is direct. but you do want to maybe take thoughtful action. It is an air sign. It is Saturn and the Sun and Aquarius. So it's maybe taking thoughtful action, or just sort of, being pensive about things, or pausing before you leap forward. And it's an interesting dynamic, because we've been so, like, stopped because of all this retrograde. And so things didn't feel like they were moving forward. And then there's a Sun Saturn, which never really feels like it's moving forward. So, but that's really the big stuff this week. And there isn't anything else to be concerned about. And, it's really, we're going to move into something different now. The energies are going to shift, and I think this is really positive. And when we have this new moon this week on Tuesday, it's time to really make some effort towards a manifestation, something really positive. And I have a story to tell, which some of you have heard from me already, but because you're in my life and you talk to me regularly. But so, I told you last week that Monday was my birthday, and if you saw my Instagram, we went out and went to an Argentine steakhouse. But the property where I live, couples come here to have a baby, and they come from all over the world. I think the first couple came from Alaska. Somebody came from Russia. There were people from Argentina long before I moved here. And baby number 50, because I think some people have been here twice to have a baby. Baby number 50 arrived this week. Baby number 50 arrived in the wee hours of the morning of my birthday. So this is, I thought, hey, this is the first time I've ever had a baby born on my birthday on this property. But it was baby number 50, which is a milestone, right? Like, how many times do people come here to have a baby? So you would think, a couple of times. No, they all, the woman went into labor in the apartment. It's an Airbnb. She went into labor, and this, some of the longer term residents here, they're kept up at night because of the labor. But that's one of the side effects of having people come here to have babies. The midwives all know the property. But what I found out a day or so later was that not just, it's a milestone. Hey, first of all, a person had a baby on my birthday. Wow, how about that? Second, it's the milestone baby. It's baby number 50. Wow, how about that? They named their baby Jupiter. Okay? They didn't know me. I didn't know them. I'm an astrologer. It was my birthday, and these people named their baby Jupiter. It's a boy. I met baby Jupiter I think I met him on Thursday, and his parents, and they were, like, very congenial and lovely, and they're actually from California, but they're living in Puriscal, which is not far from here, which is a beautiful area. And I couldn't believe it. One of the other friends of mine here said, introduced me, and we said, I'm an astrologer, and you had the baby on my birthday. And they're like, oh my goodness, yes, the baby's named after the daddy's his ruling planet. So he's a Sagittarius. Then these people knew their way around astrology. They already knew what the baby's rising sign was. They must have had an app, and that told them the baby's chart, and they were looking at the planets, and they already knew. And these people had just given birth. So they were recovering from giving birth, but they knew the baby's chart. So yay for astrology, like, score for astrology. And then, how about that? Somebody named their baby Jupiter on the birthday of an astrologer. So this is just, it's got reverberations all over the place. I couldn't believe it. That not only that, but I thought it bodes well for me in my year ahead. So if I do say so myself. So I think that on my solar return, I got a blessing from Jupiter, and without even realizing it. So I think it's going to be a good year. So let's all celebrate together this good year. And now that we've gotten a lot of these retrogrades out of the way, we can start to move forward, or we will by the end of the week. And and start to move into this lovely Venus Mars that's going to happen, and then eventually Venus joining Neptune and Jupiter at the end of April. So let's be positive, let's be optimistic, let's go forward together, and let's see what Venus and Mars bring us over these next weeks. I'm excited. I hope you are. And so if you need to speak to me and you'd like to have a session, you can just reach me through thegoldenastrologer.com, my website, and you can go to book online. And if you'd like to have a Reiki session with me, I do Rainbow Crystal Reiki. It's a fifth dimension Lemurian Reiki. You can book that session with me also, or you could write to me and say, hey, Deb, what's that Reiki about? It's at info@thegoldenastrologer.com or deb@debmcbride.com. And I'm on Instagram, The Golden Astrologer, and you can tune into me there, where I either do videos or I write little pieces about what's going on in the heavens. And my Twitter is @DebAstrology, and I'm on this podcast weekly on Sundays. So I thank you all so much for listening and being with me. And hey, we made it through Venus retrograde. Aren't you happy? Isn't this great? And love to each and every one of you, and much gratitude for all listeners. And shout out to everybody who's here regularly. And I really appreciate and send my love. Thanks so much. Have a good week.